The storm outside raged, thunder crashing like a chaotic symphony. In a dimly lit bedroom, she sat, cross-legged on her bed, immersed in the glow of a handheld gaming console. Her intense focus was interrupted by a low rumble, not from the storm, but from her stomach. With a groan, she reached for the snacks on her bedside table, muttering, "This is my paradise." She wasn't ready for what would happen next. The screen on her console flickered, the colors twisting into a swirling vortex. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. "What the?" she whispered. Before she could react, a bright light filled the room and a strange figure materialized in front of her. It wasn't human. "Congratulations," it said in a cheerful, mocking tone. "You've been selected for an exciting new experiment." Her jaw dropped. What was this thing? And what kind of experiment was it talking about? Her name was Anzu, and until that moment, her life revolved around gaming, snacks, and her disdain for anything remotely romantic. Relationships? No, thank you. She was perfectly content in her world of pixels and chocolate bars. But this was something out of a nightmare. The floating figure, some kind of bizarre magical creature, explained her predicament with an unnerving grin. "You've been living in a bubble of gaming and solitude for too long. It's time to disrupt your comfort zone. Say goodbye to your snacks and games. From now on, you'll face the ultimate challenge. Love." Anzu's eyes widened in horror. "What? No way. Take someone else." But it was already too late. In a flash, her beloved snacks vanished. Her gaming consoles disintegrated into thin air, and the world around her warped into something entirely unrecognizable. She was no longer in control of her life. Anzu found herself in a setting she couldn't escape, a romantic dream turned nightmare. Her first encounter, a handsome stranger, tall and charming, who just so happened to accidentally bump into her, sending her sprawling to the ground. "Are you okay?" he asked, offering her his hand. She ignored his outstretched hand, glaring at him instead. "Who are you, and why are you in my personal space?" The stranger looked genuinely taken aback, and Anzu felt a flicker of guilt. But before the interaction could escalate, the magical creature reappeared, whispering in her ear, "He's one of the candidates. Play nice, or your snacks are gone forever." Her fists clenched. Snacks. Why did everything always come down to snacks? The days that followed were a series of increasingly absurd scenarios. Anzu was thrust into a life she didn't want, surrounded by people who seemed determined to win her heart. But she wasn't playing along. Every time the handsome stranger tried to charm her, she would find a way to derail the moment. A sudden sneeze, an awkward stumble, or even a sarcastic comment to break the tension. She wasn't interested in romance, and she made sure everyone knew it. But as the days went on, she began to notice something strange. These people, her potential suitors, weren't just cliched love interests. They had their own quirks, vulnerabilities, and stories. Was it possible they were more than pawns in this ridiculous experiment? One evening, after a particularly exhausting day of dodging romantic encounters, Anzu sat alone in her room. The magical creature appeared once again, its mischievous grin still plastered on its face. "You're not exactly making progress," it teased. "Don't you think it's time to embrace the challenge?" Anzu glared at it. "Why me? What's the point of all this?" The creature tilted its head, as if pondering her question. "Perhaps you're meant to learn something about yourself. Or maybe you're just the perfect guinea pig." The answer didn't satisfy her, but it did make her think. Was there something she was supposed to learn? Or was this just some twisted game? What would you do if your world was turned upside down? Could you adapt, or would you fight to reclaim your old life? Despite her resistance, Anzu began to see subtle changes in herself. She was learning to navigate situations she had once avoided at all costs. Whether it was dealing with an overly dramatic admirer or finding herself in an unexpected act of kindness, she was discovering a side of herself she hadn't known existed. But the experiment wasn't done with her yet. One day, she found herself in an elaborate setup, a moonlit dinner on a rooftop. It was the kind of scene straight out of a romance novel, complete with sparkling lights and a breathtaking view. And there he was, the same stranger from the beginning, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart race despite herself. For a moment, she let her guard down. But just as she started to wonder if she could actually enjoy the moment, the magical creature's voice rang out in her head. "Remember, this is all part of the game." The realization hit her like a wave. Was any of this real? Or was it all a carefully crafted illusion? As the night wore on, Anzu found herself standing at a crossroads. Could she truly trust the people around her? Or was everything part of the experiment? And more importantly, could she trust herself? Her life had become a whirlwind of chaos, comedy, and unexpected emotions. But one thing was clear. This was only the beginning of her journey. With her resolve stronger than ever, Anzu turned to face the magical creature. "You think you can break me? Game on." And with that, the story takes another twist, leaving us all wondering, will Anzu embrace the chaos, or will she find a way to outsmart the experiment entirely? If you're as intrigued as we are, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we unravel the next chapter of Anzu's wild adventure.